Afterward, the world's leader asked how they could repay Earth. Carter's message was the same as always. Help someone else when they're in need. That world later saved a refugee fleet from a black hole's pull. And so the chain grew. In Geneva, the Assembly voted to open Earth's archives. Every invention, every discovery, every lesson learned from failure. It was all uploaded to a public galactic network, free for anyone to use. Some feared others would misuse the knowledge. Owen said, "Then we teach them how to use it right." And they did. Earth sent mentors, not masters. They showed how to build a reactor without melting a planet, how to grow food without poisoning the soil, how to disagree without destroying. One evening, Lena stood with Owen on the roof of the Horizon Station, watching two moons rise over Mars. Below, human and alien children played a game that mixed Earth soccer with Sylvani light tag. Laughter floated up through the airlocks. "They used to think we were animals," Owen said softly. "Now they see us," Lena replied. "Not perfect, just trying." Back on Earth, Carter walked alone through a park. No guards, no fanfare. Just a man among his people. He stopped to watch a group of kids launch paper rockets into the sky. One landed near his feet. He picked it up. On the side, in messy handwriting, it said, "To the stars with kindness." He smiled and placed it back on the grass. The galaxy was still vast. Danger still existed, but for the first time, many species believed peace was possible. Not because someone forced it, but because someone showed it could be real. And that someone was human. Earth had stopped pretending, not to be weak, but to be anything less than what it truly was, flawed, fierce, and forever willing to try again. Waited, and it watched. Deep in the Geneva bunker, President Daniel Carter sat with Lena Ruiz and Owen Briggs, reviewing data that had been hidden for decades. It was the full record of Project Iron Veil, the real story of humanity's quiet rise. While the galaxy saw humans as loud, emotional, and barely civilized, Earth had spent 50 years building something else in secret. Not just weapons, but systems. Not just ships, but ethics. Owen pointed to a screen showing schematics of human power cores. "These aren't just energy sources," he said. "They're clean. No radiation, no waste. We could power a whole city for a century with one unit. We never shared it because we knew someone would try to take it by force." Lena added, "Our AI systems don't just follow orders. They weigh consequences. They refuse commands that harm civilians. We built them that way on purpose." Carter leaned back. "We held back not because we were weak, but because we knew what power does to those who don't understand responsibility." Now the time for hiding was over. Earth began to share, carefully, slowly, but openly. First, they sent medical nanites to the Sylvani, who were fighting a plague in their outer colonies. The tiny machines repaired cells, reversed aging damage, and saved thousands. The Sylvani, stunned, asked how they could repay Earth. Carter's reply was simple. "Share your knowledge of stellar navigation. Help us map safe routes for others." Next, Earth released open-source designs for water purifiers and solar grids to struggling worlds near the galactic rim. These were not fancy. Just basic, reliable tech that could turn deserts into farms. No strings attached. No demands for loyalty. Just help. Then came Kyle Voss. The Varelian defector had been living quietly on Luna Station, recovering from years of fear. One evening, he asked to speak with Owen. In a small meeting room with soft lighting, Kale handed over a data crystal. "This is everything," he said. Names, dates, locations. The Conquered didn't just lie about Earth. They wiped out 3 species they called unstable, burned their worlds, blamed rebels, buried the truth. Owen reviewed the files. His face grew pale. The evidence was undeniable. Entire civilizations erased, their histories rewritten as cautionary tales. Earth had suspected, but now they had proof. Carter made a decision. He did not leak the files to cause chaos. He sent them directly to every neutral system, every former Conquered member, every independent colony, with a note: "Judge for yourselves." The reaction was swift. Worlds that had once stayed silent now demanded justice. The Krell called for a new tribunal. The Helios Enclave offered to host it, and for the first time, species that had never trusted each other began to talk. Not about war, but about safety, truth, and a future without hidden knives. Meanwhile, human ships patrolled the edges of Sol space, not as conquerors but as guardians. When a smuggler fleet tried to raid a refugee camp near Neptune, a single human frigate appeared. It didn't fire. It just broadcast a message, "Leave now." The smugglers fled. Word spread fast. Earth protected the helpless. Lena Ruiz visited Titan Colony, now being rebuilt. She walked among the new domes, spoke with survivors, helped lay the foundation for a memorial. A young girl, no older than 10, handed her a drawing, a human ship with wings shielding a planet. Lena kept it in her pocket. Back on Earth, schools began teaching galactic history, not just human history, but the stories of others. Children learned Sylvani songs, Krell honor codes, even basic Virelian script. Owen helped design the curriculum. Understanding, he said, is the first step to peace. But not everyone trusted Earth's sudden openness. Some whispered that this was a trick, that humanity was luring others into a trap. A small rebel group near the Orion Spur even attacked a human supply ship, shouting that Earth was the new Concord. The ship's crew did not retaliate. They sent a rescue pod, treated the wounded rebels, and left. No arrests, no punishment. Just care. The rebels were confused. They expected anger. They got kindness instead. One of them later sent a message. "Why didn't you fight back?" Lena answered personally. "Because we've already won. And winning doesn't mean making others lose." As weeks turned to months, more species reached out. Not for weapons. Not for secrets. But for partnership. A mining guild from the Lyra system asked Earth to help design safer drills. A group of artists from the Helios Enclave invited human musicians to a festival of light and sound. Even former Concord officers, ashamed of what they'd done, requested asylum. Not as spies, but as penitents. Earth granted it. Not out of weakness, but strength. Carter explained it simply. If we only welcome friends, we'll never make new ones. One night, Owen stood on the roof of the Geneva Center, looking up at the stars. He thought of all the years he'd spent trying to translate alien words, only to realize the hardest language wasn't spoken. It was trust. And now, slowly, humanity was learning to speak it fluently. Down below, the city hummed with life. Above, the sky was full of signals, not threats, but greetings, questions, invitations. The galaxy was changing. Not because Earth had the biggest guns, but because it chose to be better than its enemies expected. And in that choice, humanity found something rare, not just respect, but true belonging. Part 5. The stars above Earth no longer felt distant. They felt like neighbors. After months of quiet diplomacy, shared aid, and open truth, the galaxy began to change. The old Concord was gone, not destroyed, but dissolved by its own lies. In its place rose something new, fragile and full of hope. Earth did not lead it with force. It led it with example. President Daniel Carter stood before the United Earth Assembly in Geneva. The room was full, delegates from every nation, scientists, teachers, farmers, even children who had written letters about what peace should look like. Outside, the sun shone on green hills and clean rivers. Life had returned to normal, but it was a new kind of normal, one built on honesty, not fear. Carter spoke without notes. "We showed them our teeth only when they refused to see our hand," he said. "Now let's build something better, together." His words were broadcast not just on Earth, but to every world that had reached out. The Sylvani listened from their floating cities. The Krell paused their drills to hear. Even former Concord members, now forming their own independent councils, watched in silence. No one interrupted. No one mocked. They listened because Earth had earned the right to be heard. The plan was simple. Not a treaty of power, but a pact of partnership. The Sol Accords, as it came to be called, had 3 rules. No hidden weapons, no forced alliances, and all knowledge shared freely for the good of all. Earth offered its clean energy grids, its medical tech, its AI ethics protocols, not as gifts to buy loyalty, but as seeds to grow trust. Lena Ruiz stood on the bridge of the Aurora, now docked at a new station halfway between Earth and Mars. This station, named Horizon, was not a military base. It was a meeting place. Aliens walked its halls alongside humans, some tall and silver-skinned, others small and furred, all learning to speak each other's names. Lena no longer wore her uniform with tension. She wore it with pride, not for war, but for service. She met with Kale Voss often. The Virelian had chosen to stay not as a refugee, but as an advisor. He helped Earth understand the hidden wounds of the galaxy. The world still afraid, the species still hiding. "You don't need to conquer them," he once said. "Just show up. Be kind, stay," and Earth did. Human ships carried not soldiers but engineers, doctors, and teachers. They helped rebuild a farming moon damaged by old Concord mining. They taught children on a desert world how to pull water from the air. They listened more than they spoke, and slowly the galaxy began to heal. Owen Briggs traveled often now. He visited the Sylvani libraries where he learned songs older than human cities. He sat with Krell elders who taught him that honor wasn't about strength, but about keeping your word. He even helped translate the first joint storybook, written by human and alien children, about a lost spaceship that found friends instead of enemies. Back on Earth, schools changed. History classes no longer ended with wars. They ended with questions. What would you build if you had no enemies? Art projects showed humans and aliens building cities together. Science fairs featured fusion reactors small enough to power a village, designed by teenagers from 3 different species. Not everything was easy. Old habits died hard. A few rogue fleets still tested Earth's borders, hoping to find weakness. But each time they found the same thing: calm readiness. No anger, no revenge, just firm boundaries and open hands. One pirate captain, after his ship was disabled near Jupiter, was given fuel, food, and a map to the nearest neutral port. He asked why. Lena told him, because everyone deserves a second chance. He never attacked again. The real test came when a small world near the galactic rim sent a desperate call. A solar flare was coming, one so strong it would burn their atmosphere. They had no shields, no way to escape. They had nowhere to turn but Earth. Carter didn't hesitate. He ordered 3 Neptune-class ships to go, not with weapons but with atmospheric stabilizers. Massive devices Earth had built but never used. The ships arrived just in time. Working with local engineers, they deployed the shields. The flare hit. The sky turned red. But the people below were safe. On Earth, Carter exhaled slowly. "Send the message." Owen typed it out just as calm as before. "We do not seek conquest, but we will not be prey." The message went out. This time it wasn't ignored. Across the galaxy, species that had long dismissed humanity watched the battle footage in stunned silence. The Krell, a warrior race known for their brutal honor, replayed the Aurora's graviton strike 10 times. The Sylvani, peaceful scholars who rarely left their homeworld, sent a quiet inquiry to Earth's diplomatic channel. "What are you?" Back near Mars, Lena ordered her fleet to hold position. Rescue shuttles launched from human carriers, not to loot or capture, but to offer aid to stranded Concord crews. Medbots floated toward escape pods, scanning for life signs. When a Concord officer, half dead from oxygen loss, was pulled aboard the Aurora, Lena met him personally. She gave him water, a blanket, and said only, "You attacked us. We stopped you. Now go home and tell your leaders what you saw." The officer, trembling, could only nod. Meanwhile, deep in Geneva, Owen made a breakthrough. While analyzing captured Concord comms from the disabled ships, he found something strange. A hidden data stream, encrypted with Varelian codes. He traced it back to a series of false flag operations, all designed to paint humanity as violent and unstable. The Proxima attack, a fake raid on a neutral mining station, even rumors about human bioweapons, all lies, all spread by the Varelian hegemony to turn the Concord against Earth. They wanted a war, Owen told Carter. "Not just with us, with anyone who might side with us." Carter rubbed his temples. "Then we show the truth." Within hours, Earth released the decrypted files, raw, unedited, with full verification tags. They showed Varelian agents planting evidence, forging logs, bribing Concord officials. The data spread like wildfire. Smaller species within the Concord began to question their leadership. Protests flared on neutral worlds. Even some Concord Council members demanded answers. But the real shift happened in silence. In the dark corners of the galaxy where fear had kept others quiet, messages began to arrive at Earth's outer stations. Short, coded, hopeful. A trader from the Lyra system offered spare parts. A scientist from the Helios Enclave sent schematics for a new sensor array. And then came the most surprising message of all, from a Varelian defector named Kale, hiding on a smuggler's moon near Orion. He claimed to have proof of Concord war crimes across 12 systems. He asked only for safe passage. Carter didn't hesitate. "Grant it," he said, "and tell him Earth protects those who seek peace." Lena, back aboard the Aurora, looked out at the drifting conquered ships. She thought of Titan, of her brother, of all the times humanity had held back, smiled through insults, and played small to survive. Now they had shown their hand, not with rage but with control. Not with cruelty but with choice. The galaxy was learning something new about humans. They were not loud because they were foolish. They were quiet because they were dangerous. And when they finally spoke, the stars listened. Part 3. The conquered did not believe what their eyes showed them. Their fleet, one of the largest ever sent beyond their core worlds, had been stopped. Not crushed, not blown apart, but neatly, cleanly disabled, by ships they had laughed at just weeks before. High Arbiter Zelkor refused to accept it. He called the footage faked. He claimed human trickery. He demanded another strike force be assembled, twice as large, armed with planet cracker warheads. But this time his orders were met with silence. Within the Conquered Council, doubt had taken root. The evidence Earth released could not be ignored. Virelian fingerprints were all over the false attacks. Worse, the data showed Conquered officers accepting bribes, altering reports, even ordering civilian targets marked as military. Species that had long bowed to Conquered authority now whispered in hallways and encrypted channels. The Krell envoy demanded a full investigation. The Sylvani suspended their trade agreements. Even the Virelians, once confident in their manipulation, began to distance themselves, blaming rogue elements and offering half-hearted apologies. But Zelkor would not back down. He gathered what loyal ships remained, mostly from his own homeworld, and launched a second attack. This time he aimed not for Mars or the colonies, but for Earth itself. He believed that if he could strike the human homeworld, shatter their cities, break their spirit, the rest of the galaxy would fall back in line. He told his captains they are bluffing. Their restraint proves weakness, not strength. He was wrong. As the Concorde fleet jumped into the Sol system near Neptune's orbit, they found no panic, no frantic defense, just quiet. Earth's outer sensors had tracked them for hours. Every human ship, every station, every hidden platform was ready. And this time humanity did not wait for the first shot. From the dark side of Pluto, 3 Neptune-class dreadnoughts emerged, silent, dark, their hulls absorbing starlight. From asteroid belts near Jupiter, drone swarms unfolded like metal flowers, linking into a net of quantum sensors. Near Saturn, old mining tugs powered up hidden drives and formed a defensive screen. And in high orbit above Earth, the orbital defense grid, long dismissed as outdated, hummed to life with emerald light. Lena Ruiz stood on the bridge of the Aurora, now the flagship of Earth's silent armada. She gave one order: show them what happens when we stop holding back. The battle began not with fire, but with silence. Human ships activated chronoton dampening fields, localized bubbles where time itself slowed for enemy weapons. Plasma bolts crawled through space like lazy fireflies. Missile guidance systems glitched, confused by distorted causality. Before the Concorde could react, human graviton lances struck again, not to disable but to control. One pulse bent space around a conquered carrier, trapping it in a loop of its own trajectory. Another collapsed a destroyer's warp core into a harmless singularity, contained and sealed. Zelkor screamed for retreat, but it was too late. Human drones swarmed his fleet, not to destroy but to map, to learn, to expose. Every shield frequency, every weapon calibration, every command code was copied and analyzed in real time. Earth wasn't just fighting, it was studying. On the ground, Daniel Carter watched from Geneva. No sirens, no evacuations. Cities stayed lit. Children went to school. The people of Earth trusted their defenders, and that trust was not misplaced. Owen Briggs sat beside him, monitoring alien comms. "They're panicking," he said. "Zelkor is ordering his ships to self-destruct rather than be captured." "Let them try," Carter replied. "Our containment fields will stop even that," and they did. When a Conquered cruiser triggered its core overload, a human frigate fired a pulse that froze the reaction mid-explosion, sealing the energy in a stasis bubble. The ship hung in space, glowing red but harmless like a captured star. Within 20 minutes, the second Concorde fleet was neutralized. Not a single human life was lost. Not a single city was touched. Zelkor's flagship, the Sword of Order, drifted powerless near Uranus, its crew stunned into silence. Lena ordered a boarding team to secure the vessel, not to loot, not to humiliate, but to recover logs, evidence, and prisoners of war. She wanted the galaxy to see exactly what the Concord had planned: full-scale bombardment of civilian centers, orbital strikes on schools and hospitals, all under the banner of restoring order. When the logs were released, the galaxy recoiled. Even species that had once supported the Concord now called for Zelkor's arrest. The council fractured. The Krell withdrew entirely, declaring the Concord corrupt beyond repair. The Sylvani opened direct talks with Earth, and from the edges of known space, more messages came, requests for alliance, for protection, for hope. Back on Earth, Carter met with Lena and Owen in the same quiet room beneath Geneva. Rain tapped gently on the windows. The world above them lived on, unaware of how close it had come to fire from the sky. They thought respect was fear, Lena said. Now they know the difference, Owen nodded. We showed them we can win without becoming monsters. Carter looked at them both. Then we build something better. Not an empire. Not a shield. A promise. In the days that followed, Earth did not celebrate victory. It offered aid. Medical ships were sent to help Concord civilians caught in the chaos. Engineers shared basic shield schematics with neutral worlds. And when Kale Voss, the Varelian defector, arrived at Luna Station under Earth protection, he was not interrogated. He was given a room, food, and a simple question. What do you need to feel safe? Kale, who had spent years running from his own government, wept. No one had ever asked him that. Above Earth, the stars no longer felt cold. They felt watched, not with fear but with curiosity, and for the first time in human history, the galaxy was beginning to see them not as pests, not as primitives, but as something rare, a species strong enough to destroy, but wise enough to choose not to. Part 4. After the second battle, silence fell over the Sol system. Not the silence of fear, but the quiet that comes after truth is spoken. The Concord no longer sent fleets. Their council was in chaos, torn apart by accusations and resignations. Some member worlds declared independence. Others called for peace talks with Earth. But Earth did not rush to fill the void. Instead, it... Part 1. The stars above Earth's orbital stations burned cold and steady, indifferent to the tension building in the silence between worlds. Far beyond the moon, near the edge of human-controlled space, a conquered fleet gathered. Their ships were sleek and silver, shaped like blades, humming with power that made even the vacuum around them shiver. The Galactic Concord called itself a peacekeeping alliance, but to Earth, it had always acted more like a judge, jury, and executioner rolled into one. On the surface of Earth, in a quiet room beneath Geneva, President Daniel Carter sat with his hands folded on a plain wooden table. Around him, the Unified Earth Security Council watched a live feed from Titan Colony. The image showed smoke rising from shattered domes, ice fields cracked open like broken glass, and rescue drones weaving through debris. 12,000 people were gone. Not in battle. Not in war, just gone. The Concord had called it a necessary correction, after blaming humans for an attack on a neutral trade station near Proxima. But Earth's own logs, verified by 3 independent systems, showed the truth. The attack had been faked. The weapons used matched Varelian design, Concord's own allies. Carter didn't shout. He didn't slam his fist. He just looked at the screen and said, "They think we're still the same scared kids who begged for a seat at their table 20 years ago." Across the table, Commander Lena Ruiz leaned forward. Her uniform was neat, her dark hair pulled back tight, but her eyes were tired. She'd just flown in from Luna Base Alpha, where she'd been overseeing drills that no one outside Earth Command knew were real. "They don't see us," she said quietly. "They see what they want to see. A loud, messy species that barely made it off its own planet. They don't know what we've built in the dark." Dr. Owen Briggs, thin and sharp-eyed, tapped a data pad. He'd spent most of his life studying alien languages, not for war, but for understanding. Now his work felt like it had been wasted. "I've translated their latest broadcast," he said. "They called us emotionally unstable mammals with access to dangerous toys. They're not even trying to hide their contempt anymore." Carter nodded. "Then it's time we stopped playing along." The room fell silent. Everyone knew what that meant. For decades, Earth had walked a careful line, showing just enough strength to be taken seriously but not enough to be seen as a threat. Human ships used older-looking engines. Weapons were listed with lower yields than they actually had. Even diplomatic messages were worded with extra humility, full of please and we hope you understand. It was all part of Project Iron Veil, a quiet strategy born after the first contact war scare of 2147. Back then, a single aggressive gesture from Earth had nearly brought down a fleet 3 times its size. Since then, humanity had learned to smile while sharpening its knives, but smiling hadn't saved Titan. Carter stood up and walked to the window. Below, Geneva slept under soft rain. Trees swayed. Lights glowed in apartment windows. Normal life, unaware that the fate of the species might hinge on the next few hours. "We send one last message," he said. "Not a threat. Not a plea. A warning, clear, calm, final," Lena frowned. "They'll laugh." "Let them," Carter said. "But they'll remember it when the laughing stops." In a secure comms room deep inside the Geneva bunker, Owen typed the message himself. He chose every word like placing stones on a scale. No anger, no fear. Just fact. To the leadership of the Galactic Concord, your recent attack on Titan Colony was unprovoked and unjustified. Evidence proves human innocence in the Proxima incident. Cease all hostile actions against Earth or its colonies immediately. If you do not, we will no longer maintain the restraints we have shown out of respect for galactic peace. Stop attacking or we stop pretending to be respectful. The message was sent. Unencrypted. Broadcast on every known frequency. Conquered channels, neutral trade bands, even old human emergency nets. It traveled faster than light, carried by quantum relays hidden in asteroid belts and disguised as comets. Within minutes, it reached every listening ear in known space. On the Concord flagship, High Arbiter Zelkor read the message and chuckled. He showed it to his war council. "The primitives are upset," he said, his voice dripping with amusement. "They think words can stop steel." The council laughed too. To them, Earth was still that scrappy, loud species that barely understood warp theory. They had seen human ships sputter through drills, heard their clumsy diplomats fumble through negotiations. They didn't know about the Neptune-class dreadnoughts docked in hidden lunar craters. They didn't know about the graviton lances tested in the Oort cloud. They didn't know that every outdated human vessel had been retrofitted with shielding that could bend light around it. Back on Earth, no one celebrated the message. No one cheered. In Luna Base Alpha, engineers ran final diagnostics on silent drives. In orbit around Mars, cargo haulers disguised as civilian ships powered up hidden weapon arrays. On the ground, schools stayed open, markets bustled, and children played, all unaware that their world was standing at the edge of a cliff, ready to either fall or fly. Lena Ruiz stood on the observation deck of Geneva Command watching the night sky. She thought of her younger brother, lost in the Titan attack. She thought of the years spent training, planning, waiting. And she thought of the strange thing about humans. They were kind until they weren't. Patient until they weren't. Respectful until someone made them stop pretending. Owen joined her, holding 2 cups of coffee. "They'll ignore it," he said. "Maybe," Lena replied. "But this time when they come, they'll find out what happens when we stop pretending." Above them, the stars stayed silent. But somewhere out there, engines were warming up. And Earth, for the first time in a century, was done asking nicely. Part 2. 17 days passed after Earth's warning. The Conquered did not reply. Instead, they moved. Their fleet, over 200 warships, turned toward Mars, their path clear and unchallenged. To the Conquered, it was a simple show of force. They expected human ships to scatter like birds, maybe fire a few warning shots, then retreat behind diplomatic noise. They did not expect silence. Near the orbit of Ceres, the Concorde fleet slowed. Scanners picked up human vessels ahead, dozens of them arranged in a loose ring. No signals, no hails, just stillness. The human ships looked old, their hulls patched with what seemed like makeshift repairs. Their engines gave off weak thermal signatures. To the Conquered, it was proof of weakness. High Arbiter Zelkor ordered the advance, on the bridge of the Neptune-class dreadnought. Aurora, Commander Lena Ruiz stood with her arms crossed. Around her, crew members moved calmly, eyes fixed on screens that showed the enemy closing in. There was no panic, no chatter, just quiet readiness. Every human ship in the formation was running on stealth protocols. Engines masked, emissions dampened, weapons charged but hidden. They looked broken. They were anything but. Hold position, Lena said. Her voice was low, steady. Let them make the first move. Back on Earth, President Daniel Carter watched the feed from a secure room in Geneva. Dr. Owen Briggs stood beside him, arms folded, jaw tight. Neither spoke. They knew what came next. They had trained for it, planned for it, hoped they would never have to use it. The Concorde fired first. Bright lances of plasma tore through space, aimed at the lead human vessel, a battered-looking freighter called the Haven. The shots hit. Shields flared, but not the weak bubble shields the Concorde expected. Instead, a shimmering lattice of blue energy absorbed the blast and redirected it harmlessly into subspace. The Haven didn't shake. It didn't retreat. It just sat there unmoved. Then the human fleet responded, not with noise, not with fury, with precision. From the Aurora, a single pulse fired, a graviton lance invisible to the eye. It struck the nearest Concorde destroyer. The ship didn't explode. It simply folded. Space around it twisted for a fraction of a second and the vessel vanished, reappearing 1,000 kilometers off course. Its systems scrambled. Weapons dead. Another pulse hit a command cruiser. Its engines stalled. Its comms went dark. Within 3 minutes, 12 Concorde ships were disabled. Not destroyed, just neutralized like toys with their batteries removed. Zelkor stared at his screens in disbelief. "What is this?" he demanded. Their tech logs showed nothing like this. His officers scrambled. Scans showed human ships now revealing hidden layers. Armor plating sliding aside to expose weapon ports. Hulls glowing faintly with adaptive shielding. Engines humming with power that defied known physics. The old freighters unfolded wings of phased alloy. The patched cruisers lit up with targeting arrays that locked onto conquered ships faster than thought. Lena gave the next order. "Disable, don't destroy. Show them we can end this anytime we choose." Across the battlefield, human ships moved like dancers. They dodged plasma fire not by speed, but by bending local gravity fields around them. They fired not to kill but to disable, targeting engines, comms, weapon capacitors. One by one, conquered vessels went dark, drifting helplessly in the void. The rest tried to retreat, but human drones, small silent things shaped like darts, latched onto their hulls and flooded their systems with logic viruses. Within 17 minutes, the entire Concorde strike force was neutralized. Not a single human ship had taken serious damage.